Mark, welcome to Legacy Talks. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for trusting me with this. You mentioned on the form that you left Navy, you had a successful career, and you started again in sales. Can you tell me, what did the Navy give you? Something you didn't know you would have to lose one day?
That's a good question. First of all, thank you for having me as well. I'm very glad to be here just to share whatever I have into the world. That's a tough question because, I haven't really thought about it, but I would say the first thing is security, because in the Navy, in the military, in a 9 to 5, you have security in the form of money coming in every month. And I would argue that the security in the military is so much more than a usual job because, I mean, if you don't fuck up, you're not going to get fired. So my paycheck was steadily coming in the whole time, which is good for some people. For me, for a time, it was good as well. But at one point, and I didn't know when, it starts to limit you in the ways that you think and the ways that you think you are capable of. And yeah, it starts to limit you on maybe going for that dream you have, that dream business that you want to launch, that identity that you need to adopt in order for you to get that dream. It really limits you just in the way that you think and the people that are around you. And this is not me saying that I didn't have good people around me. I was very grateful for the people that I had in that time, but unconsciously they start to impart their mindset onto you. And more often than not, that mindset is you're not going to get anything better than what you have now. And if you do, it's only going to be a 10% bump in your paycheck every year, maybe less. That's what we used to in the 9 to 5. So the first thing I would say is the security that I did lose when I completely restarted in a new career of sales. And the second is, I would say, the camaraderie that I had with my peers back there. Because in the Navy, we had work and play. It's my opinion that being in the military almost allows you to not grow up in certain ways. It's helped me grow up very quickly in the ways that I needed to, like my own independence, my own house, caring for myself, my own laundry, my own ironing, these kinds of things. But at the same time, it allowed me to, I don't know, be mature in other ways, like relationships, and not really asking myself, what is next? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? Because you can just work and sleep and drink and party with your peers because we're working with them, we're bonding with them at the same time. And a lot of people are happy with that life. And that is what I lost, to answer your question, when I left the Navy. And I did, and I do miss it for a time. Yeah.
Okay. So before everything changed, who are you? I mean, not your title, but who are you underneath your work?
I think that, look, I started in the Navy when I was 17. I joined at 17. And I actually turned 18 when I finished the Navy training. So that's a very difficult question to ask someone, maybe a 17-year-old. I don't know, maybe other people know who they are at that age, but for me, I didn't. And you can very easily mistake your identity in the work that you do. So if you ask me then who I was, I would have said, hey, I'm Mark. I'm from the Philippines. I'm an aircraft engineer. Like, who is Mark? I'm an aircraft engineer in the Royal Navy. I lead a team of men recovering the aircraft, making sure they're ready for the next mission. But did I have enough time and space to really ask myself these deeper questions at that time? No, I didn't. So you could say that I didn't really know who I was.
Who are you now?
God, these questions are so good. They're so good because I don't know. Who am I now? I think it's always changing. Gosh, I really need to give this question some time. See, the first instinct that I have is, again, defaulting to the work I do. So the first default answer that I have in my head is, I am Mark. I'm from the Philippines and I'm a business owner. Gosh, who am I? I think one layer deeper is to describe my characteristics, like who I show up as.
When you close your eyes for a second,
Okay.
and when you think, who are you? What comes first to your mind?
Well, I would say that who I am is, I don't know how woo you want to take this podcast to, but I would say I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
That's very interesting. Okay, expand on this.
Yeah. I think, especially in the last maybe 90 to 120 days, I've had, I don't know, you could call it like a spiritual awakening of sorts. And that means differently from person to person. But you could say that I remembered why, maybe not why I'm here, because I'm still figuring that out. But I remember that, hey, I'm not just a human having a spiritual experience. It's more the other way around, where I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. So
That's deep.
yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us forget that. And it's a very difficult question to answer. Who am I? Because that in my head, my answer to that is, well, who is my ego? Like who are you talking to? Are you talking about my ego? Or are you talking about my soul? And it's a very different way to answer either. But my ego would say like, hey, I'm a 27-year-old man. I run a business. I have another business in the Philippines. Yeah, I love playing the game of business, of money, of self-improvement. So yeah, it's a really difficult question to answer, Kat. I'm sorry if I've given you a really roundabout answer.
Please don't apologize, because I think that sometimes the simplest questions are the most difficult ones, aren't they? Because I think that once we start taking off the layers of ourselves,
Mm,
because someone say, "Oh, I'm a business owner. I'm this. I'm that. I'm the other."
yeah,
But if you change the perspective, and as you
yeah.
mentioned, you are a spiritual being having a human life, that changes perspective completely, and not everyone
hmm
can actually understand it.
hmm
At what point in your life you started having that duality?
That's a good way of putting it, duality, because there is, yes, you can remember that you're a spiritual being and you're here to have the most fun that you can have in this life. At the same time, you are still under a character, and your character will have likes and dislikes, like my likes and dislikes based on my life and my experiences. And it's very important because the difference from person to person gives me my characteristics, gives me my personality. But it all started really, I don't know how far I can take this back. I would say I've always been a fan of self improvement. I've always subconsciously wanted to get better, whether it's a winner's mindset, maybe it was installed in me by my parents, maybe I just hated losing. But because of that, I've always been into reading, and maybe not so much reading, but learning. I was always curious about why things work the way that they do. And actually, for a lot of my life, I was told that I didn't have common sense. Because if I did have common sense, why would I be asking such a stupid question that other people, society, they don't question these things. They already know the answer. They are ready to accept the surface level answer, whereas I wasn't. So my curiosity was sometimes mislabeled as that's a stupid question. But it, I guess, led me to a journey of self discovery, why I think the way that I think. And through the books that I was reading, slowly but surely, I was like, if I can change the way that I think and my personality is malleable and if my personality is malleable, then that means that I can choose to be who I want to be. And then came the question of like, who is this self that I can change? Who am I?
There's so many different theories, and like for example, Dolores Cannon, she's not here with us anymore, but she's talking that we live multiple lives at the same time, and very often, if we poorly, our soul remember things from our previous lives, and once you solve and remind yourself
Hmm
this can be healed. I wonder, what kind of books were you reading, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest book that sort of you could say woke me up violently from from this dream, from what a lot of religions call Maya or the illusion, is Ask and It Is Given by Esther Hicks. My God. So that
Absolutely.
book really hurt my head, first of all, when I read it. And I was like, surely this isn't real. Like there was a lot of resistance to me like accepting it. And I was like, there's just no way that this is real. Okay, let me pause it for a second that this is real. I'm gonna read through the rest of the book. And slowly but surely it started making sense. And since then I've done deep dives into Hinduism. I've read the Bhagavad Gita and how they think consciousness works. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Again, another great guy, which is still with us. He's great. And now I am reading, well, I'm more of a listener actually, but they're all kind of the same concepts explained in a different way. And now I am reading A Happy Pocket Full of Money, where it goes into obviously what a lot of religions have already knew about consciousness for thousands of years. And now quantum physics is catching up to those facts, or to what they believe. So yeah, that's where I am recently. So it started with self-improvement, getting myself better, and then all of a sudden opened the door to who am I? Who is the self? And when you ask me like, who are you? It really sends me on a spiral, because I'm like, who do I tell her I am? Who I am truly, or who my ego is? My character on this earth. I hope I haven't sent your viewers to a spiral here, Kat, but yeah. You
But I
want to
can
take it from
see that
here?
you're very open-minded, which is something really, really interesting, because having certain understanding and being open to new knowledge, but also when you have the source, when you think about consciousness, when you think about quantum physics, how it starts, as you said, it starts catching up. And there are certain things you can see, there are certain things you can, how do you call it? Yeah, you can experience certain things. And usually people start talking about enlightenment, change, they start asking questions when something difficult starts in their lives.
Mm.
What you mentioned that with you it started from reading books. But was there any moment on your timeline when you thought, God, there's something bigger than myself?
Yeah. Well, I think that book just like completely threw me into a 180 as to like, okay, what do I believe? I have, you could say, religious indoctrination from when I was young, what other people think, what other people say is true, but what do I believe? And when I can answer what I believe, where do those beliefs come from? So it takes a lot of introspection and a lot of, yeah, like you mentioned, open-mindedness to really take a deep dive into what you believe. And when I did, I found that, okay, these are beliefs that were installed in me by other people. I don't know where these beliefs come from, but they're not logically sound. When I stress test them, they actually fall apart. So, okay, here in this book is a new way of thinking, like a new belief that I could form. How do I test this? Okay, because beliefs come from evidence. So in that book, as the first part is how it all works, how manifestation all works, and the second part of the book is actual techniques on how to do it. So I tried them, and they've worked, and I was like, no, okay, it's working. I understand kind of why it's working according to the book. Let me try it again. And then it worked again. And slowly but surely I built this new belief system on new evidence that it worked for me. So when I was restarting the business, no, sorry, just starting the business, I tried this thing called scripting in the book, where you're writing in the first person in your journal and you're writing as if things have already happened. And I was on the plane to Dubai in February, and on that plane, I was journaling about how I was going to meet my first client there, or my next client there, because I didn't have a client then at that point. So I was going to meet my client there, and I was just going to be myself, and I'm going to attract them as a client because they would like me and how I operate, and I wouldn't have to pretend I'm somebody who I'm. So I scripted that in the plane, and I arrived in Dubai quite late in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning. And the meeting, the I don't know, the event that we came there for started at 9. So you've been to these networking kind of masterminds yourself. So the first day when you get there and someone's talking to someone else, you're like, it feels a bit daunting to put yourself in a room where you don't know anyone, but you're there, and all of them are there for the purpose of self-improvement. This specific one was for real estate. And I remember feeling, okay, there's a lot of people here. They're all talking to someone. I am going to go get myself a coffee. So I did. And then I got my coffee, and everyone is still talking to other people. And I kind of felt shy in that moment. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put my coffee down on this corner. And there was someone on that coffee table that wasn't talking to someone else. And I was like, okay, this is my cue. I finally have someone to talk to. And I was talking to her about her business, and she was telling me about what she did. And she was a body worker. And she asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I help people in the in the health niche scale their businesses. And she says, so people like me then. And we went through the whole retreat. It was 3 or 4 days, and I met her, and it was all fine. I was meeting other people as well, getting to know their story. And I go back to the Philippines a couple of months later. She hits me up out of the blue and says she really needs help with her business, like out of the blue, completely unprompted. Now, if you do believe what Esther Hicks is saying in that book, she says that as soon as you manifest something, as soon as you set an intention, it is already yours. But the time it takes to actually materialize is based on how much resistance you have to that idea. Now, if you had no resistance at all whatsoever, you would be manifesting things like that. So it took me 2 months to manifest that client because of the resistance that I had. But what I scripted in that plane journey still happened exactly how I said it. And she's actually one of our best clients to date. It's so easy working with her, and we are getting her results. So that's amazing.
So if someone is listening to this and thinks, what?
And that's just one of the stories I can say about manifesting. But yeah, that's probably the most tangible one.
So if someone listens to us and watches the video,
Mhm.
and if someone wants to test what you're saying on themselves, how could they start?
Cool. Okay, that's a good idea. What I would say is, first of all, I think the first step is tuning into the present, because and the reason I say that is because if you're not present in your day-to-day life, if you're not noticing things come to you, how are you going to notice that what you're manifesting has already arrived? So I think the first step is presence, but I feel like that's a bit intangible. So in terms of a step-by-step guide, what I would do is I would first learn to meditate. If you're not meditating every day, then that's the biggest thing that you can do, because that power of manifesting that we're talking about is already within you. And every single person on this earth has that power. It's just that they haven't been taught how to, or maybe they've tried meditating and there's a lot of chatter within their minds. That's normal. So I would say, first of all, start meditating and start to separate the attachment that you have to your thinking. Because what a lot of people don't know is that voice in your head that tells you what you need to do, it's actually not you. Is Cat her brain, or does Cat have a brain?
Yeah, that's a very good one, because the brain, the thought, and the process of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
that is really complex. So it's not so easy to answer this question. Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, how can you separate and how can you recognize which thoughts are yours? They
Mm-hmm.
belong to you. Which ones are not yours?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
ones belong to the soul? And we also have beliefs. On one side, we've got our body, we've got our brain, our beliefs, then
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts comes and goes. But very often we think that we are our thoughts, and that is
Yeah.
not the case. And
Yeah.
recognizing that is very, very interesting, because then we just start peeling like pancake pieces of ourselves. And there's another level of when you start getting messages. So how would you differentiate that?
I feel like we do have to start with the meditation so that you can separate your real self from your brain, from your mind. Because as you said, we have a mind, and some people's minds are very strong, and sometimes they're very attached to themselves, to the point of when someone gets hungry, they eat. They don't actually have that separation of, like, I'm noticing that I'm hungry. Then it's your decision whether or not to eat or not. So I would say first step is to meditate, get yourself to a point of stillness so that you can connect to yourself, to your breath, to your body.
And not having any thoughts.
Well, that's the misconception that a lot of people have. It's okay that you have these thoughts because you do have a brain, you do have a mind, and the mind does race from time to time. And especially if you haven't practiced quieting your mind, these thoughts are going to come in like 100 miles an hour. And this is the normal person kind. There's people who haven't meditated. This is normal for them. So the point of meditating is that so that you can come to a point of stillness, no matter how long that takes. But what I don't want people to do is to start meditating and try and get into a point of like, okay, I'm meditating so that I can quiet my mind, so that I can have no thoughts. I mean, that is the goal, but when you're trying to have no thoughts, inevitably thoughts are going to come in. So what I would say instead is just sit there in stillness and focus on something to do. Your brain needs something to do, because if you tell your brain not to do something, typically your brain will do that very thing that you're not supposed to do. So focus on your breath. You could look up some breathing exercises, but I would just say focus on your breath and start to breathe slower. Because when you're just sat there in a comfortable position, you won't need a lot of oxygen to come in. And you are going to have thoughts that are going to come and go, but this is normal. This is your brain just doing its normal thing. But the more you can separate yourself from this thought that you're having, and knowing that it's not you, that you are having thoughts, you are not the thoughts, the better and the quicker you can get to a state of stillness. So a cue that I use, Kat, I'm not sure if you use this, but I'm pretty sure it was the Buddha that said this as well, that if you visualize yourself as the sky and the thoughts that you're having are clouds in the sky. So you have to remember you're not clouds, you're the sky, and the sky has clouds that passes slowly, sometimes quickly. And I would just accept those thoughts that you have. Just accept them for what they are and remind yourself that, hey, I'm supposed to be meditating now. I'm going to go back to focus on my breathing. So, what meditating actually is, to get to that point of stillness, is quite wobbly. You have a thought. Sometimes it's a strong thought, so you take it to the end. And as soon as you remember that, hey, I'm supposed to be meditating, you just go back to your breath. And then another thought will come in, another cloud will pass by. But the quicker you can remind yourself that you're meditating and focus back to your breath, the quicker you're going to be still. Now, that's important because once you get to a point of stillness, it depends from person to person how long it takes them. But for some people, it takes them 10 minutes. For some people, it might be half an hour. But once you get to that point of stillness where there's not a lot of thoughts coming in and you're actually very content with just sitting there and no thoughts coming in, you just focus on your breathing and you're actually focused, then you can set an intention out. Then you can think about what it is that you want. Ask yourself, source about it, and set that intention out there. Now, usually you might find some thoughts that come related to that, and you have to still yourself again. But once that intention is out, in my opinion, you still can meditate if you want to stay a bit more still. But in my opinion, you can stop the meditation there and get back to your normal everyday. The difference this time is be present, notice everything, enjoy life for what it is. And the more that you're in that present, the quicker that the intention that you set out comes to you. So I would start with small things. And once you build the evidence of those small things coming to you, as you come out of the meditation, as you become more present, you'll start to stack up the evidence and it'll start to form a belief. And yeah, you'll get to a point where you think, oh my God, I can make anything happen. But it's not, you don't want to go too far into thinking, okay, everything comes from me. Life still happens the way it does. The less detached you are from the outcome, the less attached you are to the future, the more you're going to enjoy the present, the quicker your manifestations are going to come to you. That's the way I do it. I hope it's not too complicated. It's
It
pretty
doesn't
simple,
seem very
actually.
complicated when you explained it, and I think that's the point. When you can explain a simple way, quite difficult concept. That means that you understand it.
Mm,
I've noticed that a lot of people, I think there are more and more people who are fed up with self-development, with
mhm.
when they hear the term meditation, they feel like, God. Is there any other word you would swap meditation?
Yeah, connecting to yourself.
That's a good one. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, and don't get me wrong, I still find myself swept up by the daily fires that I have to put out in my business, in everyday life. And a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stuff that it's difficult for them to connect to themselves. And sometimes they forget to even do it. But if you could just start by putting yourself as the priority and connecting to yourself every day, even if you can just start with 10 minutes, it's so much better than not doing it at all. And slowly but surely, you're going to connect yourself a bit more. You're going to trust yourself a bit more. You're going to trust your intuition a bit more. So much so that you won't need other people to help you make decisions because you already know that that intelligence, which is so much more intelligent than your brain, than your mind, is guiding you towards the life that you're actually meant to live.
I wrote one of the books. It's called Goodness Lives Here. I wrote it in Polish, and I took me 3 years to write it. I was just, when I had these moments when I was meditating, I was started writing things down. So I think writing things down as well is very powerful because that, like, say, for example, I was writing something, and then after a week, did I write it? I even didn't remember that I was writing it. So just, I only could recognize it because it was my writing. And I thought, oh God, how is that possible that I don't remember it? But yeah, it's just, as you mentioned, being good to yourself and allowing yourself for certain things. You mentioned that you moved from Navy to sales. So you had to start things over. What was the thing that you were scared of the most? Was there anything there?
We tend to move very quickly in life, and sometimes too quickly that I don't have time to think about a decision that I've made. And that can bite me in the ass. Don't get me wrong. But usually if I want something, I make a decision and I let my decision, I don't know how to say it, but I just deal with the consequences of that decision. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but the decision is made. So just to push back on your question, like, I decided that I wanted to be a business owner when I left the Navy. A lot of people, and I would say maybe 80 or 90% of the people that do leave the Navy are leaving it for another job because that's the mindset that I feel like is instilled in everyone. But I didn't, and so I forged my own path. But it doesn't mean that there wasn't things that I wasn't afraid of. And in particular, I was afraid of starting completely new, starting from the bottom. Because I had you could call a semi-successful career in aircraft engineering. What a lot of people do is they continue on that path in the private side. And one of my good friends, actually, he left around the same time I did. And after a couple of companies, he's now on 90 grand a year doing the same thing that we were doing. So I could have gone that way. I could have done that very easily, but it wasn't really where I wanted to go. And to be honest, I wanted to make no more than 90 grand a year. So yeah, does that answer your question?
I think you did. I think you did. And I find this very interesting that even the language you are using, I decided, I made it, I took ownership. It's really rare that people take ownership because it's easier to say it's his fault. I didn't do it because of something. So
I
it's
can't
really
find a job because of the economy, because of the job market. I understand it's easy. The thing is, can you change that? Can you change the economy? Can you change the job market? If you can't, then what's the point of blaming that for your circumstances? Because that's only putting you in a position where you can't change stuff. And I don't know if it's me, the way I was raised, maybe my ADHD, but the moment you tell me I can't do something is kind of like a shortcut to getting me to do that very same thing.
I think you've got Polish blood in yourself. I think that's the point with, for example, with Polish. If you tell us it can't be done, we'll find a way.
Yeah, I get that. It's really annoying. I wouldn't ever let anyone tell me what I can and can't do. And that's coming from a place of, I guess, someone already having done that to me before when I was younger. And when I felt like I didn't have control, I know what it feels like to not have control of your circumstances, which in turn helped me step into that identity of like, okay, I'm no longer going to be this person who lets other people decide his life for him. And yeah, since I've started doing that, I've had a lot of agency in terms of doing what I actually want to do and living a life that's more aligned with how I actually want to live it. It doesn't have to make sense to other people. Like I don't even care about other people and their opinion at this point because I listen more to myself. I listen more to my intuition, and the meditation to go full circle actually helps with that a lot.
You come across as a very confident and very humble person. Did you ever tell people that you were fine where inside you just felt, no, I think I made a mistake?
Yeah, I guess I think when we're younger, when we and maybe this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me, it certainly applied where I would put other people above myself in terms of making a decision, maybe, yeah, making a decision that they're more comfortable with. So I'm going to go with that. But what I found when I did that was at the end of the day, I would be miserable. And even if I didn't understand how miserable I would be, and the longer time passed, I would be even more miserable. But it's just not aligned. And it's not aligned in what you're meant to do in this world. And I felt that. And it's actually really doing a disservice to those very same people that you're saying yes to. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be showing up as your real self, which can be exhausting.
So when you started making your own decisions and when you started being aligned with yourself, with your purpose, did you lose anyone along the way? And I'm not saying through the conflict, just because you stopped recognizing who you were anymore.
Yeah, I would say that your intuition gets weaker the less you listen to it, because the more you, I don't know, put other people in front of you and their decisions, that's like saying no to yourself. Like saying no to your own happiness, to your own inner joy. So did I lose people when I started listening to myself more? Absolutely. Was it worth it? Absolutely. I guess everyone can relate. A lot of people can relate to that of like, okay, but if I live the way that I really want to, then that means this person is going to lose me, and this person is going to lose me, and I don't want to lose them, and so therefore I'm going to stay here in this no man's land where no one actually is happy. So I would say I do absolutely get that, and I've been there, but the life that you actually want is on the other side of the life that you have today, and one of them has to die. You choose.
Wow, that's really interesting, because a lot of people talk about it, but not many people actually do it. And you mentioned that you listen to yourself more. Do you remember when you started doing it to yourself? What were the small first things you started doing differently? So maybe even someone nobody else noticed, but you could see change in you, that you started saying yes, yes to yourself and no to someone else, because behind every no to someone else is yes to yourself.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So your question is, when did I start noticing that? Or what were the telltale signs?
What were the things that you started doing for yourself?
I think the answer to that goes even further than when I started to do things for myself and decide things for myself. Because when you do decide to put other people before you, and I believe this, and maybe other people will disagree with me, deep within that wasn't the decision. There will be a feeling inside of like, I feel like that wasn't the decision. So say, for example, I'll give you a tangible example. I was in a relationship with my ex before, and we would have several discussions, heated discussions, arguments about whether or not we should stay together. And we would get to a point where we would get so close to breaking up, but in the time of me trying to break up with them and deciding what my next move is, when you love someone, it's very difficult to let them go. And it's especially difficult if they're asking you to stay. So in that time, I would kind of go back on my decision and say, hey, okay, fine. We'll try it one more time. And this pattern repeated 2, 3, 4 times before I actually did go through with it. But every time I would have this small sinking feeling that this wasn't. And no matter how much everyday stuff that I try and do, like focus on my work, focus on what is happening, the next party, the next gathering, when you do have that time with yourself, and you do connect to yourself, that feeling will come back, and it'll manifest itself in many different ways depending on your personality, but you will have that feeling. And I feel like everyone can relate to that, even if they don't want to admit it to themselves. So when I did start to listen to that part of myself, I just turned out to be happier. I was just more content, even if it put someone else maybe in 2, 3 weeks or months of sadness. There was a piece that I got that I didn't have before that I was like, oh my God, I'm not going back to the old way.
When
So
you
it was
know,
a
you know.
piece.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it's such a cliche, but cliches come from so many shared experiences that it becomes a shared experience. So Yeah.
If you, for example, imagine that someone listens to us who want to change their jobs, their career, if they want to start something new, but they're scared because of safety net, because comfortability, because it's because of unknown. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, it's very difficult because I know exactly how they feel because I was there once and I understand that they do need to make X amount of money to survive and stuff like this. And I was in a I was very grateful for the position that I was in so that I could get myself out of my 9 to 5. At the same time, I did take steps while I was in the 9 to 5 to upskill myself into the different industry that I wanted to jump into. So we're talking, I had a very good career in engineering, aircraft engineering, and I forewent all of that to start completely from the bottom in sales. But there was a time period where I was still in the Navy and I was starting and did the courses and I was starting to have a part-time job while I was in the Navy to start to get my feet ready for the next phase of my life. So all of that to say, if you do have an intention and you take action on that intention, one way or another, it'll align. You'll have, I don't know, say for example, for me, I had 2 months that the Navy was still paying me that I didn't actually have to work because I saved up all my leave. And so I know I'm very fortunate to have that option. And I know a lot of people don't, but this was my way of stepping into a completely new industry. And I think there's also something to be said about burning the boats, because when you put yourself in a position where failure means that you're going to get thrown out into the streets, then failure doesn't become an option. And that means you put your 100% effort into what you're doing, which actually sometimes it's what that person needs to be successful anyway. When you remove all plan Bs, plan Cs, and you say to yourself, I'm going to make this work, and you do start to see that it's working, it's only going to motivate you to have that positive feedback loop and you get better. You have that evidence to yourself that you're getting better. Then you're motivated to work a bit harder. And slowly but surely, you actually get what you wanted. Now, I have another answer, which is very similar to my answer earlier to you, which is you can have the life that you have now, or you can have the life that you want. You can't have both. And one is the cost for the other. You can say, okay, I'm going to party every weekend because I like this 9 to 5 job and I'm going to sacrifice the potential that I have for this. No one is telling you you can't do that. That's what a lot of people do, even if it's unconsciously. But yeah, you can decide which life you actually want. And that
I
does
think
start with taking ownership.
it's also important. I think it also depends on the phase you've got in your life, because when you're on your own, it's different. When you've got family, it's different. When you don't have family, then you can pack your stuff and just go wherever you want, do whatever you want. You can make all mistakes of the world and come
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
if you need to. When you've got family, when you've got mortgage, I think the decisions have to be a bit different. But yes, as you said, it's
I understand. It's everyone has a different situation. I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I didn't have a mortgage. I did have a place that I had with my ex, but we broke up and I moved out. And so I was in a position where I could just pack up my stuff and leave. I know that for some people it's gonna take a few more planning to do it. And you could on one side say, I can't because of X, Y, and Z, or you could say, I have to because of X, Y, and Z.
yes, changing perspective. Mm.
Yeah.
You help other businesses. What do you do? How do you help other businesses?
Yeah, so I actually run a growth consulting agency. So what we do is we help grow companies through different growth strategies. So growing means that they have a baseline of how much money they're making, how much revenue the company's making, and through the strategies that we implement, we increase that. And then we charge a percentage of how much we increase plus a monthly retainer to actually pay us for our services. So my background obviously was engineering, but after that was sales. And it turns out that any company who sells something, if you sell more of that same thing, you're going to make more money. So I handle the sales part. My business partner does the marketing side and getting people interested. And we typically take the companies that we work with through a framework, a 3-step framework. That means that if they just follow the framework and we implement different strategies in that framework, then there's no reason why they wouldn't.
So if someone needs your help, what kind of issues do you help with?
Yeah, so typically we help service businesses. So they're either selling a service, like say for example, I have a client which is a clinic in Texas. So they want to grow, obviously. So we are running their paid ads on social media, and we're also implementing some strategies like speed to lead. Like as soon as they reply to the ad, we have a system that calls them straight afterwards, texts them straight afterwards, get them booked in so that they can talk to the doctor, and then the doctor, depending on their situation, will recommend them a program that would work in their specific situation. And I'm helping them, those doctors, have the conversation in a way that allows them to help the other person if they deem that the other person do need that program, communicate in a way that makes them want to buy it, and so therefore grow the company that way. And so everyone's happy, the company makes more money, they help more people, and we make more money by helping that company make more money.
If someone would like to get in touch with you, how can they do it?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's called aceexpansion.co. So it's ACEEXPANSION.co. It's CO. Yeah.
Okay.
You can also find me on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram. Mark R. Sparrow.
I'm going to add your link to the
Uh-huh.
description as well. So if anyone would like to get in touch with you, there will be a chance to do that. The last question. If you could sit across from the man you were the day you left the Navy, what would you say to him?
That's a very good question. And I love that you asked me that question because I haven't asked that to myself. Let me think. I would tell him to trust himself because there was a time where I didn't. So I would say that, yeah, trust yourself. It is okay to want the things that you want. And the faster you actually take actions on the things that you want, the happier you'll be and the more successful you'll be. That's what I would tell him.
Thank you. Mark, thank you very, very much for this, for being honest on camera about something most people never say out loud. Before we close, I want to say one thing. This is what I do. I'm a ghostwriter. I help people write their own stories, so nobody forgets them. If this conversation said something in you and you have a story you've been meaning to tell, please reach out. That's what I'm here for. Mark, thank you very, very much for your time today.
You're welcome, Kat. You're welcome.